Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dive In, twice monthly conversation about anything and everything ocean for ocean conservation enthusiasts of all ages.
And you are?
I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer and entrepreneur, and you are?
I'm Sylvia Earle. I am explorer in residence, National Geographic, founder of Mission Blue, and I love to go splash in the ocean. So why don't we do that?
All right, I'm going to screen share here, we hope.
Yes. We have to remember very first, number one.
Wait a minute. Oh my goodness.
Where we are. We're on a planet.
Oh my God.
Where the world is
blue. Oh, thank goodness. We survived that. Okay.
There we are.
The world is blue indeed.
Now we know. Our long ago ancestors didn't have a clue. Couldn't have a clue.
Couldn't have a clue. Oh dear. And we will dive in. In our last episode, we talked about sharks, these wonderful fish that have been around for about 450 million years.
And leaping out instead of diving in.
Yeah, they do that occasionally when they're hunting for little seals like this unfortunate fellow.
They've been around longer than whales.
They certainly have.
Whales sort of began to phase in when dinosaurs phased out, but sharks were there all along, and they still are.
And yet, even these most formidable sharks have a new predator in their lives. The orca is known to take sharks. You've seen them, you said, with a hammerhead in the mouth. And
absolutely. Even a great white shark. I haven't seen them do that, but I've seen images and talked to the people who were, what is that? What's he got in his mouth? It's not a minnow. It's a great white shark.
Exactly. And the great blue whale. I mean, who could believe that the biggest animal to ever live, these animals can be 30 meters long and 173 tons.
Yeah.
A massive animal. This is a skeleton of one at the British Museum of Natural History.
I think it says something really positive about humans. There's a lot negative to be said, but this could be all that we ever got to know of the largest animal on Earth. But we have stopped killing them at last. It wasn't always the way.
No, but even that huge animal reliant on such a small creature like a krill.
About the size of my little pinky.
Yeah, really tiny.
Yeah.
But for so many years, whales have been hunted for their, their oil, their meat, their bones. Products. These beautiful sperm whale pod here, really the subject of summer reading time. Moby Dick.
It's worth reading.
Again and again. And a more current version, Heart of the Sea, the story of the Essex, which was the true story that Moby Dick was based upon.
The whale really did attack a whaling ship, and I would do the same thing if I were a whale. And
I think he was just defending himself.
Well, yeah. Somebody tried to smash me with a harpoon, I'd bite back.
Absolutely. But look at these great sperm whales. Here they are. These are sleeping sperm whales. Just imagine kind of cruising around.
Back in the bad old days when Scammon and other whalers, this was the big book about Scammon's Lagoon, not where sperm whales were, but it's a book about great whales generally. They portrayed whales like buses, just straight, flat, instead of understanding how graceful they are and that they live in a three-dimensional world. They can go up and down and sideways. But anyway, now we know so much more about who they are, not just what they are.
But now I'm going to show you a bad picture, so look away if you're squeamish. But this is the last whaling station in Australia in 1978.
Not that
shocking.
Long ago when you think about it.
It was 1971 when the last whaling station here in San Francisco Bay finally shut down. It was over at in Richmond.
People can change. When I was a kid, I didn't even think about it. I wasn't made conscious of what we're actually doing to these amazing animals. We didn't think of them as amazing animals. We thought of them as
products.
Yeah. That's what we were schooled to think.
And there's a few countries still doing it. There's,
Japanese.
This is Japanese products, but Norway's a big player. And Iceland, up until last year, when they finally, Iceland realized that people would pay more to see whales alive than they would pay to buy dead meat.
Well, that argument was made. I served on the International Whaling Commission for 4 years. when I was the chief scientist at NOAA. That was part of what I did before and sometime after. But the idea that whales alive, even if you think about dollars and cents, are more valuable because of people such as I and you pay big bucks for the privilege of going to be with a whale of many species. These are the beautiful narwhals, the unicorns of the sea.
Aren't those amazing tusks?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was so hard to stand up against those who only saw the value in dead whales.
Yeah.
But there's more to what a whale delivers than just dollars and cents.
What are those environmental benefits?
Well, it's like flocks of birds that once used to cross continents and leave nutrients along the way. They'd fertilize the land, if you will. And at the conference that took place in Davos earlier this year, there was big news about how whale poop actually fertilizes the sea that now enables phytoplankton to grow, capturing carbon. There's a climate connection. The headline was, "What role do whales have in climate change?" So they help hold the planet steady. It's the chemistry of the ocean. Of course, it isn't just whales. The whales are big animals. They consume a lot of groceries. They put a lot of nutrients back.
Mm-hmm.
And we're beginning to understand how everything connects to everything else.
Well, my favorite is the humpback whale.
Yeah.
And it's really because I have a lot of personal experience with these incredible animals. During the filming in the 1970s of the Gentle Giants of the Pacific, I got the opportunity to go along both to Hawaii and to Alaska for several seasons as we followed these individual whales.
Individuals.
Yeah.
You used to have to put a tag on them, a harpoon tag that they lived with for the rest of their life. But smart scientists on both coasts began to realize, well, even a school teacher, Chuck Giraz,
right?
I say even a school teacher, he's very smart, and but by making direct observations, saw things that many scientists who call themselves learned scientists hadn't noticed before, the effects of sounds and how you can look at the tail prints. And he began on the West Coast what some scientists were doing on the East Coast to document and develop like a tail print catalog,
right? Each
rogues
of these
gallery.
And each of these is as individual as a fingerprint in a human. So, here's these great marine mammals that we kind of take for granted of, oh, it's just a whale, but everyone is an individual. And it's such a really fundamental shift when people were able to realize that they could track these guys from point A to point B, and they could travel 3,000 miles easily in a season between the breeding and the feeding grounds.
And they're self-tagged like you are. I recognize you.
I recognize you. So
I recognize that whale.
Yeah. And then, we recognized also Katie Payne. She was an ethnomusicologist, and she and her then husband, Roger Payne, realized that these same whales would, they have a song, and it changes and it varies from population to population, but they
place to place,
place
and
to
year
place.
to year.
But I think we're going to try to hear some of it.
Oh yeah.
If I can do it.
Kitty. Being in the water with one of these animals while they're singing, it just makes
it vibrates all the air in your lungs.
It's like being next to a major rock band, if you will.
Right. This is nature's amp, right? Yeah. It just sort of like, you feel it move right through you.
Absolutely. And the sound travels. When Roger Payne suggested that the sound could travel over literally hundreds of miles, people said, no, I don't think so. But now it's verified.
It's verified. And the other cool thing about this is that, I guess it was about 1970, he took he burned a record track, or a tape track at that point, and he took it to Columbia Records and said, listen to this. And they actually produced a, honest to God, LP of whale songs, and it turned into, and remains as the best-selling nature album of all time.
Well, and then further, we did back-to-back articles in the National Geographic about our experiences in Hawaii, Alaska, and included was a record of whale songs. And at the time, National Geographic had a print circulation of about 11 million. And embedded within the magazine was a record. So that was another bestseller.
Yeah, it was the coolest thing.
Platinum instantly.
Yeah, open that up and have that little record tucked into the back. But when we were in Hawaii, you know, it was. I mean, I had the experience of a whale coming up underneath the small boat and lifting the whole thing out of the water and then really gently putting it back down. But then we were diving with them, and the cameraman was busily filming you eye to eye with the whale.
Yeah, that would be
And another whale was coming along behind you, and cameraman didn't see it, you didn't see it, I could see it, and I was like, ah, you know, because it's huge flippers coming like this right on track with your head. And at the very last possible moment, the whale just went lifted right over and completely, I mean, she knew you were there. She was taking care not to clobber you. And it really shows that they know what's going on.
They know where their big bodies are.
Yeah, they're very cognizant, very aware.
Yeah.
But
I think if they held a grudge, we would not be safe in the water because
no. Really
we've done
terrible things
to them.
But you know, following these guys from Hawaii to Alaska was a really cool experience. And what happens is when they go there in the cold water, they're finding a lot of krill, a lot of herring. Some of them go to Alaska, some go to the Antarctic to feed. But the one thing that they do across the board is to hunt for and accumulate these smaller prey animals so they can catch it with their baleen. We have a piece of the baleen here. So this attaches to the roof of the mouth, all right? And baleen hangs down. And they take that big mouth of water, squish their tongue here, strain out the water, and
it's like eating minestrone with a toothbrush.
That's kind of nasty, but yeah. Yeah, but that's kind of a cool thing. But I think let me see if we've got this video that Paul Nicklin shared with us.
Oh, this Paul Nicklin video is really
go.
With music.
Yeah, a little more music. Not whale song. Watch what happens here. The spiral comes up and whoosh. It's these whales working together to create that net and to accumulate those animals, and then the one animal comes right up through the middle.
Right. Sometimes little fish, sometimes krill.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, in a sense, it's tool use by something other than a human. They're using bubbles.
Yeah, they blow them out their blowhole and create the spiral. The bubbles expand as they come up, you know, confusing the small animals there.
So in
and
the 70s,
whoosh, look at that.
Don't be right in the middle of that.
We had that happen too.
Yeah,
that was disconcerting. But again, they knew we were there. They didn't bump into us.
They didn't swallow the boat.
No, they did
not. They could have, but they didn't.
Yeah.
But the idea that these animals collaborate and essentially use bubbles in a meaningful way, nobody knew about such things, or if they did, they weren't putting things together in a way that suggested whales were worth anything more than just pieces of meat.
Pieces of meat, exactly.
But I was a witness, and so were you, of the time when these new insights about what do whales look like underwater? How do they behave? Do they stick together? Are there families? How long do they live? A lot of things that we've just begun to, and we're still beginning to learn about the nature of these basically other nations, populations of intelligent creatures occupying, the world is blue, occupying this planet.
Yeah, and they're very playful too. I have to say, you know, we watch these huge humpback whales coming along, and they'll take a small iceberg and just roll it. It's like watching your Labrador, you know, roll a big ball around. And
this is fun.
Yeah, and they will do it. But there's other whales that are more intent on using those kinds of techniques for doing things like hunting. So the orcas will hunt seals. They'll sort of spy hop out of the water, and they'll hunt for seals sitting up on a smallish chunk of ice, and they'll come in together and try to roll the iceberg together and flip the seal off so they can eat him.
So that takes forward thinking.
Yeah.
Again, we're so self-centered and think we're the only ones with half a brain, if you will, a brain and a half. The biggest brain on the planet is owned by sperm whales.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And orcas are obviously intelligent.
The
They have
wolves of the
families.
sea. Yeah.
They stick together as a social group, live a long time, and yes, they plan.
Yeah. But one of the really interesting things about the humpback whale is that they tend to be quite altruistic. And there have been many instances where a humpback will come kind of charging in like this, you know, kind of really trumpeting through the blowhole, and they will drive off orcas from, you know, if the orca's trying to come in and get a humpback whale calf, then it's like all hands on deck. They come, you know, blasting in, and they will drive the orcas away, either just from, you know, they don't have teeth, but size is on their side, right? So they're just like large and in charge. They come, you know, screaming in. And
there's stories about whales protecting humans as well.
There was
humpbacks.
Humpbacks, a woman, I think she was in Hawaii, and the humpback was kind of nosing her in the water, and she was like, oh, this is kind of novel, but she didn't realize there was a large tiger shark nearby that someone else spotted, and then she realized the whale was kind of intentionally putting itself between her and the, you know, potential predator. And we've seen it too where the orcas are hunting for seals, where a humpback has come in and kind of rolled over alongside the piece of ice, and the seals jumped onto the belly of the humpback.
No way.
And then boom, off to the next iceberg to escape from the orcas. So it's a fascinating thing that, again, it's not really that well understood, but we don't get that much time in the water with them, and they're a lot harder
so much more.
You know, we have other social animals like, you know, gorillas or elephants that are fundamentally easier for us to spend time with. But another thing with these, you know, with both the humpbacks, the orcas, and probably other whales, is the importance of family. And you were talking, you know, other nations, we've seen oftentimes that the humpbacks will, you know, make these long journeys in the company of you know, other females. So the role of the grandmother or the auntie in their population is, and again with the orcas, it's very well documented, with the grandmother orca coming in and teaching the young ones how to hunt, and actually actively bringing food to the youngsters. I think that's been seen with where they've gotten penguins or seals, and they'll bring it in and sort of teach the.
Now it's your turn.
Yeah, your turn. But the whole thing of having a family is really special in these animals. And the ones up in Puget Sound particularly have been studied, that southern population.
The other thing that we're learning is the language that different populations, as you pointed out, with the humpbacks, that different parts of the world, we know that it's a humpback vocalization, but it's at any one time around the world, different populations have different vocalizations, different songs, if you will, but it's more than songs, it's also the social sounds. And it changes every year for humpbacks. I don't know that enough is known about the orcas and their changes over time, but they certainly do have distinctive inflections, languages, if you will, depending on which part of the world that they come from. Well, I speak English, but some of my friends speak French.
Right.
But we're both human.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing. And I think that, you know, we need to, again, have the ability to go out and spend more direct time with these animals to truly understand what we don't, to learn to know what we don't know.
Right.
But there's so many impacts. I mean, yeah, we've largely stopped killing whales, but there's some major impacts that are still affecting them, that, you know, each of us can do something about, even though they seem like really big problems. But one of the big ones, of course, is ocean noise. And, you know, you take an animal, we've talked about being so reliant on sound for communication, and, you know, the traveling long distances, how do they talk across or communicate across these great expanses?
I used to say a deaf whale is a dead whale.
And I think it's true. You know, oftentimes we'll see here along the West Coast, the primary shipping channel that we like to move a lot of cargo. This is Port of Oakland here. A lot of cargo ships come in, and they choose to use the same route that most of the whales use. And if you can imagine this big churning sound of the ship coming along, and it's very disorienting and confusing. And we see a number of whales being actually, you know, hit by the ships. Many of the ones that wash up ashore dead, stranding.
There's nothing in their long history that has prepared them for the speed, the noise of this amazing traffic that is amped up enormously since the 1950s. Presently, 90% of all goods in the world go by ship at some point. We're talking what you get in the supermarket, what you see in stores, whatever it is. It's human civilization. The trade is largely sea trade.
And it's not, you know, in the past it was by sailing ship,
Right.
which is, you know,
Quiet.
slow and relatively quiet. But in fact, the old sailors used to talk about being able to hear the whales coming right through the ship. Mm-hmm. But now, you know, you've got these behemoths that are all driven by fossil fuels.
And these huge thrusters, the propellers.
Right. But it's not usually the propellers that hit the whale. It's usually the bow. They kind of, you know, broadside them going through where they, but sometimes it can be the prop and you know, cut into them.
Chop
into them. Yeah. But, you know, it's one of these things that, you know, if you can go onto, there's a website called marinetraffic.com. And so yesterday, just yesterday, I went and I took a little screenshot. So this is all the ship traffic just yesterday in the world.
Oh, there were some blank places there. Oh, over a whale, that's where I'd go.
Yeah, right.
These little bits of open space.
Well, it's one of the reasons why there's such a push right now to get you know, the Antarctic by 2020 protection, and for the high Arctic to try to not be opening these routes to ships, because I mean, look how cluttered it is. Where's the whale supposed to go? You know.
Well, it's something that is under consideration now, and the shipping industry really is lagging far behind in so many ways about the fuel they burn, what's happening in Mauritius right now with a big spill.
Yeah.
And even obey the rules that are there to guide them in places where they're not going to run aground. But knowing where the whales go, now we have a better idea. Knowing where the ships go, we can do better.
We can, and the technology is there, and there's collision avoidance sonar. There are spotting techniques. I mean, we use spotting planes to go hunt tuna. Why aren't we using, you know, getting private pilots of the world to get out there and let the Coast Guard know when they see that there's a pod of whales near shore. So, you know, people can help, even at recreational boaters, if they see a bunch of whales whale ahead, you know, let the authorities know so that they can try to divert some of the larger ship traffic, or at least slow them down.
Right. So
the whales can have a better chance of getting through.
You get better mileage too with your fuel.
Yeah, it's more, and you know, again, it's one of the things one things people could do is thinking about where the products are coming from and how they're transported. Yeah. Is there a local alternative that doesn't involve the whatever it is traveling, you know, many thousands of miles to get to them?
And the ships on this image are in Antarctica competing with the whales for food. I don't know what business we think we've got going to all the way to Antarctica to take krill to use for cosmetics or to give us
oil,
omega oil. Good heavens, there are plenty of other sources,
plant-based sources.
Yeah, but why kill krill? Because in so doing, you really kill the whales.
Yeah, well,
and the penguins and the whole ecosystem.
The whole ecosystem, and the argument that there's excess krill because we've, you know, killed so many whales. I mean, it's just not true.
No, it is not.
I mean, they
lots of mouths out there that loves to eat krill, and they need the krill. We don't. They do. True.
But another big issue for the marine mammals is ocean plastic. And these are a few items I picked up in about an hour on the beach. I had everything from a pair of shoes to, you know, bottle caps and bottles and all manner of stuff.
There's a Barbie doll in there.
Yeah, the Barbie doll again. Yeah, we showed this one stuff before. But, you know, again, if you think about, you know, this baleen and what a piece of you know, the plastic bag, bottle caps, lighter, toothbrush, any of that microplastics, any of this kind of stuff, how are they going to get it out, right? So they just swallow it. And it's even a guy who's got a big tooth like this,
sperm whale,
I mean, you're going to get like a plastic bag over this. It gets, you know, they don't know how to floss. So it gets jammed in between their teeth, and then
no dental tape.
Yeah, they can't get it out, and eventually they might swallow it. And they just had a couple of situations where they found whales that were stranded that had just trash balls in their stomachs. And another whale was actually a pregnant whale in the Mediterranean, her stomach was full of squid. She'd been eating normally, but the gut, the intestine, was completely jammed with plastic. So there's no possible way that she could have digested that food or even fed her developing embryo, just because it was so wedged with that plastic. So again, these are things, the choices that consumers make really does make a difference to keep this stuff out of the ocean.
Unintended consequences seemed like such a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
To have all these plastic things. We can do better.
We really can. And here's the big one, entanglement. Here we've got, this looks like it might be a humpback.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, a humpback.
Definitely, yeah. But
you see this this green line kind of wrapped right through its mouth, and that's a piece of derelict fishing equipment. Some of the line that we see, we've been working pretty closely with the California Whale Rescue Group to try to figure out new and better techniques for freeing the whales so that it's faster, safer, and more efficient. But they get these pieces of fishing gear just embedded, cuts into their skin, gets through their mouth. Now imagine they're trying to come out that bubble net, but they've got this rope stuck in their mouth. It's a terrible thing. And the vaquita, beautiful little tiny marine mammal in Mexico, one of the smallest whales.
Smallest cetaceans, yeah.
Just beautiful small animal.
And you can hold one of these in your arms, and they're only, well, a number we don't actually know, but something on the order of fewer than 30. In New Zealand, similarly, the Hector's dolphin, these are animals that are here on our watch. And the next generation is not likely to be able to, I haven't seen a vaquita, and I'll never will if we keep fishing, because it's only the fishing nets that really threaten their potential for survival.
Again, these aren't fish, they're mammals. They have to come to the surface to breathe. And when they get into a bunch of gill net like this, then what chance do they have? They can't get to the surface and they drown.
Even the fish that in Mexico and Baja that they are searching for are endangered, the tatuaba. So it's a double header. It's not just the vaquita, but there are a few more tatuaba than there are vaquita, but both of them are literally on the line.
And this one is just
heartbreaker.
It's so heartbreaking. This is a beautiful fin whale.
It's a thin fin whale.
Fin whale. Her name is Flukers. So she showed up in the Mediterranean a couple of years ago and had half a tail left. And then she showed up this year. Alexis Rosenfeld sent us this image that he took of Flukers, who's now clearly missing her entire tail. And
it was because of being wrapped with fishing gear.
Yeah. So the line just slowly sawed through over time, first cutting off half her tail, then the rest of the tail went. So now she can't, she can't hunt, she can't feed. And so she's just slowly wasting away. And the divers in the community, there's nothing they can do except just watch this play out. But again, so preventable.
And share this view so people know and understand. On the order of 300,000 animals a year, marine mammals, birds, turtles, fish that are not intended to be caught, but they get wrapped up in this throwaway fishing gear. Either it's lost or intentionally dumped into the ocean. It's the real cost of that delicious fish fillet that you
Captain's
consume.
platter.
Yeah. The ocean is clogged with this stuff, and the ocean is, some have made projections that there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish, fewer fish all the time because we're taking so much out, and all the stuff we're putting in. The cause for hope is doing what you're doing, tuning in, learning about what the problems are. You can't solve a problem if you don't know you've got one. Well, we've got some problems, and people now are the solution.
They really are, really a solution. Whales have a lot more to worry about out in the ocean than, some errant golf ball landing in their blowhole. there's far worse things out there, but there are real reasons for hope. And it's these one things that everyone can do to be part of the solution. So this image is a group, again, with the California Whale Rescue.
They're heroes.
They're real heroes. And we, as I say, we've been working with these guys to try to come up with some new tools to free these whales in a more efficient way. But right now, they go out in these little...
It's a humpback right there.
Yeah, they go out in these little rubber boats, and they really rely upon, recreational boaters, the Coast Guard, people that are out on the water that recognize an animal's in trouble, and then they call them. But because of the permitting process and all the, the red tape that goes on, oftentimes they can't get back and find the whale again. So it's one of the things we're working on to try to figure out how to relocate the whale fast, and then how to get out there and get it done quickly. Because you can see this long pole, kind of in the center of the image. It typically has a little sharp serrated knife on the end, and it's like a 40-foot long pole, and they're like trying to cut through.
Right.
And sometimes it's under tension and it cuts really easy, but sometimes that line is really embedded, and it takes really skill to get it out.
Dangerous for the rescuers too.
Yeah.
And some have actually been injured and even lost their lives in the process of doing something that they feel compelled to, compassionate about what we're doing to these poor animals. And I guess we're going to end with a good news story here.
Yeah, I've got a little, I think if I can make it play here, we'll show you a little whale rescue that had a happy ending. Maybe. Everyone's exhausted.
Yes, it is.
Long enough to follow the whale. The whale is now free.
Yes. Go back to our...
Here we are.
There we are.
So, whales. There are more whales today, actually, than when I was a kid. Why? Because we have deliberately stopped killing them, and we're starting to understand the value of protecting them. I think that's cause for hope.
I do too.
We're at a point where, for the first time, we are really able to see what our predecessors couldn't see. And I am excited that maybe in another 50 years or so, today's kids will look back and say, we finally understood how our lives really are connected to other forms of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to get along.
We really do. It's absolutely fun.
For them and for us.
So we're going to get ready to take a few questions here. We've got some.
Do we go back to full screen? Can we do that?
I'm trying. Can I? I don't know.
We do the...
I already stopped screen share, so I'm not sure. I think maybe they can see us. I'm hoping so. All right, let's see here. Stephanie says, humans seem to have a better love for whales than they do sharks. Why do you think that is?
Because we have the impression that sharks eat us.
Well, I mean, people have always kind of been a little bit afraid of, that like an orca might eat us, but they don't.
Yeah, we used to think that about orcas, but again, the evidence is clear. They're not out to harm us. If we poke them with a harpoon, if they strike back, I mean, fair game. We're fair game.
Yeah.
It's like, it's part of what happens with sharks. When you go out, you attract the fish in when you spear fish, and if the shark happens to take a bite out of the spear fisherman, it seems to me we've rung the doorbell.
Mm-hmm. You really have. And Sherry is asking us, what can we do to help whales?
The first thing is to get to know who they are and find out what the problems are. We've tried to share some of them with you, and look at yourself and what your mighty powers are. We work with some artists who are using their skills to cause people to care. That's one of the ways that there was this revolution in the way that people think about whales. In a future session, we're going to actually have a discussion with Weiland, who did whaling walls around the world, used his power as an artist to convey the beauty of whales and working with kids. So ask yourself, what is it that you are able to do working with kids, working with, as a scientist? You can gather information, you become an ambassador for whales.
Mm-hmm.
Add to the knowledge about them. I met a young woman who worked as a cocktail waitress by day, so that by in the evening, so that by day she could go out as a citizen scientist, as a scientist, to observe whales and learn about them, and then add knowledge to the body of information about whales. Anyone can add their part. So think about what your part is, and then do it.
Yes, please. So Maria, she's saying that the humpbacks are currently on the coast of Ecuador. They're coming to mate and give birth. And this year they're being incredibly active and showing off their best moves. Because we didn't talk about how they like completely jump out of the water. And yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff. She says maybe it's because of the lower boat traffic due to COVID and the mobility restrictions. We're not sure. But we've been able to hear them singing during our whole dive and saw them jumping like crazy. They absolutely love them. And, you know, that really stems back to this whole issue of marine traffic noise.
Yeah.
You know, the technology is there to be able to make the boats quieter, you know, retool some of these power trains, power plants.
And show some respect.
Always.
For other forms of life. Of course, humans are a dominant feature of the planet, but even respect for one another is something we're trying to learn, and are making some progress over perhaps the way things have been historically. But we don't have a lot of time. We need to really think about our place in the greater scheme of things and respect these other nations out there. And
really working to figure out like where the migration routes for the whales are, protect them not only in local areas or MPAs and so forth, but protect their global routes and try not
make
to have,
way for whales.
Right, but try not
and
to
tunas,
have
and turtles and sharks.
So it's true. When you protect sort of the area for a whale, you protect everything else around it. And this whole issue of the shipping lanes here along the coast, you know, our local Coast Guard has been really proactive in trying to slow the ships down and steer
traffic,
clear, you know, take them further offshore, but to really leave that pathway, that ancestral pathway that the whales have used for millennia, that we just now try to like piggyback onto because it's the shortest route, but try to, you know, again, have that respect for other earthlings.
Right. It's been somewhat successful in the East Coast, where the northern right whale has a very precarious population of plus or minus about 300 individuals, some years a little more, some years a little less, but every whale counts.
They do.
And whale strikes and entanglement, mostly with lobster pots and other fishing gear, makes it really hard for them to get above this very precarious number. And whether there will be northern right whales on the planet, in 50 years or even in 10.
10.
It depends. Maybe a virus could wipe them out because there's so few. There's little leeway. There's no insurance policy there in their population. But we can do our part. It isn't that hard. We know what the problems are.
Yeah. And I mean, is it lobster dinner really worth that? Yeah, I mean, you know, you think about
It doesn't taste that good when you know the real cost.
Right. So, you know, really understanding if you're going to consume ocean wildlife, knowing exactly where it comes from, how it was captured, and really think about it. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. Olivia's saying, how can a high school student help with whale conservation?
I guess the same answer that we delivered before. Look in the mirror. Who are you? What do you love? You have power. You have superpower because, first of all, you're asking the question. It would be terrible if you didn't understand that first we've got problems and that there are solutions, but no one can tell you better than you can tell yourself what you're good at, whether it's with words or with numbers, with observations, with communication. Are you good with kids? Can you share the view? Can you be an ambassador for whales, for the ocean? You, especially in today's world, with the communication that is just so powerful, to let your voice be heard. Don't just keep your concerns to yourself. Let others know and get their input about what can you do in combination with someone else. Everyone can make a difference, but if you work together, it really grows into a powerful force.
It really can, especially, I think, especially in starting in high school, but really starting at any time, you know, make some decisions about how you want to conduct yourself, and then try to enlist your friends and share your success stories. And
everybody starts out as a kid at some point.
That's right.
You can find the kid in grown-ups and say, come on, work with me.
Yeah. Candace would like to know, how would you respond to the question, why do whales matter?
They probably ask the same question about us. You know, what are humans doing here anyway?
That's right.
We're messing up the world. We're not doing that. Why do whales matter? Well, you could say that about so many things. What would the world be like without birds? Imagine the world without whales. It would be a world less complete, a world that is less connected in terms of the thinking about it scientifically. The chemistry of the planet relates back to all forms of life, from microbes to whales, if you will. If you take out pieces, imagine a computer. You take out pieces of the computer, it doesn't work as well as when everything is kind of synchronized and kind of driving along together. But we've taken out, we humans are responsible for losing and cutting through some of these chains that hold the world intact. So why does it matter? Why does it matter that life exists? If we really want a world that works in our favor, we'll take care of the systems that make it so. That's all the diversity of life that shares space with us. If we landed on Earth as it was, let's go back a couple billion years ago. Earth has been around 4.5 billion, big B billion as far as we know. Lots of water, lots of life, but entirely little guys, microbes, not hospitable for us. It would be like landing on Mars with no spacesuit, no life support system. Taken a long time to get from a microbial world to a world that is complete as we know it, with whales, with trees, birds, and all the rest that have shaped the Earth in a way that's favorable to us. Now, over the long period of history, maybe Earth will no longer be suitable for us, but we know that we are taking action to make Earth no longer suitable for us.
Yeah.
Look at what we're doing. Warming the planet, changing the chemistry, diminishing the fabric of life. It's as if we're deliberately trying to make Earth less hospitable for us. Well, it's not deliberate. We've been doing it in ignorance. We can't claim that anymore.
No, we can't.
We know why whales matter. They're part of the network of life that holds Earth together. And we need to respect that.
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. MT is asking, how do you protect whales or any other species outside of territorial waters where there's no clear regulatory instrument in place?
Well, we're working right now, and you're part of it because you're on the planet right now, and you have a voice. We need to support policies that respect the high seas, the global commons, half of the world, beyond national jurisdiction. This is a moment, it's really a crossroads in history. What we do or what we fail to do right now with respect to the high seas, to the world as a whole, the global commons, the air, the water, the fabric of life. It's one thing when you don't know that it matters, but you can't make that excuse in the 21st century. We know that our behavior has an outsized impact on the planet. No other species, unless we're talking maybe about microbes that changed the world through generating oxygen and everything changed 2 billion years ago. But we're conscious of the change. We have the power of not only making change, but of knowing that what we're doing. And there's no excuse anymore. We can't say we're ignorant. We're not. We see cause and effect, climate changing, the diversity of life shrinking, the chemistry of the planet changing, not in our favor. You know, we're on one hand dreaming of, let's go to Mars, let's terraform Mars, make Mars another home for us. In the meantime, we're Marsiforming Earth. We're making this planet less hospitable while we dream about making another planet more hospitable. Well, first of all, why don't we make peace here and take care of what we've got that makes Earth work in a way that gives us prosperity?
Yeah.
That's our gift.
And, you know, I think we can really, again, help drive the protection in some of these areas, like the high seas protection, really pushing the UN, writing, you know, working with the ocean elders to try to get these large areas that we all
safeguarded,
that they kind of belong to everybody. They're not or nobody, but
or the whales.
But if we can get that sort of large uniform protection, at least for the high seas, and then working with individual governments to expand the scope of the marine protected areas.
Use your power, use your voice. Don't just sit back. Let people know, look, what are we thinking? What are you thinking? Why are we out there with industrial fleets extracting from the high seas, leaving these ghost nets behind that tangle animals that are innocent of anything that we do? And they're important to us.
Yeah.
If we think about it selfishly, we need them. We don't need them on our plate. We do need them in the ocean.
Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of times it is that like a politician will be still ignorant in one way or another about what is going on in some of these areas. They get like a fisheries report and it's all driven by the economics. And so we can help to change that dynamic so that we really see the economic benefit of whales alive through tourism, through educational outreach,
through keeping us alive.
Keeping us alive, yes, always. But you know, you have to think about what can you.
This is an economic issue.
Yeah, but how can you start a conversation with somebody who just doesn't want to talk about it? You know.
Well, I think the current pandemic is an opening, in the sense that if you can't be healthy, if you're afraid of the environment, nothing else matters. The economy shuts down. You need to take care of the natural systems that keep us alive, respect the natural world, then find a place for ourselves within that system. But the way we've been going historically is just taking without regard to the consequences. But that's not an excuse anymore. And I'm optimistic because the kids are asking the right questions, and some grown-ups too, but especially the kids who are growing up just in a world where these questions and the knowledge that underpins those questions, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's cause for optimism.
It really is. And, you know, and again, just everyone has the power to start positive change in some way or another. And like, as you
Might as well
mentioned,
be you.
right. And as you
Whoever you
mentioned,
are.
whatever your strength is, you know, they're a good communicator, you know, writer, musician, anything. Don't mess with that.
It's us.
This is fine. Marta is asking, what do you think about swimming with whales and calves under an ethical tour?
Well, I personally think that it is up to the whale to allow you to be in their presence. They can swim off much more easily than you can. But I do understand, and I endorse the concepts of showing respect for keeping a distance from whales. And in this country, in the United States, we have policies that are imposed to maintain a respectful distance, and you can be fined if you breach that distance. But if you're in the water and a whale comes to you, and that
happens,
that's a different story. And the gain that has come about by being able to have that experience and share that experience and document that experience has transformed the way people really think about whales. It's a transition from the attitude that anything goes with respect to whales, kill them, eat them, turn them into oil and products, to now showing that respect for them. You can be fined for, quotes, harassing a whale. But I think that we are evolving into a system of understanding behavior, mutual respect. And with whale watching expeditions, the protocols are pretty well defined these days. Ships that are properly behaved ships anyway, go out in the vicinity of where whales either are hooping it up with their young or where they're feeding. And you just don't intrude. You treat them the way you'd like to be treated. You don't power along at high speed and create noise and commotion, but to be in their presence and be a watcher and a listener. I think there's a lot to be learned from that, whether it's in Baja California, where you can go be with the gray whales and they come right up to the boat and want to have their little noses rubbed. Mothers bringing their calves over for engagement with humans, or in places like Hawaii with whale watching, or New England where they're feeding. It's to be breathed on by a whale.
It's a fishy experience.
It's a fishy experience. It's sometimes a smelly experience,
yeah,
but it's a memorable experience no matter what.
It really is. We had one question that came in earlier from Diana, and she's asking, what are the 3 most important concepts to teach kids about protecting whales and the ocean?
Do unto whales as you would have them do unto you. Just to understand who they are. I mean, so much more now is available than was possible when I was a kid, even when you were a kid, that it's exhilarating, actually. I don't put a number on 1, 2, 3. I just say to use the knowledge that is now there and go maybe add to it yourself. Everyone can contribute to the knowledge base that continues to grow.
Yeah.
Be a witness, be an observer, go find a whale, get acquainted.
And it's amazing as well, the impact that the kids have by, you know, sitting down and writing a letter to policymakers. Somehow when an adult sends in a letter, it's like, oh my God, they're so annoying, they're nagging you. But when a bunch of kids send things in, they send in some pictures, They know that it matters. You know, those are like the future voters, and it seems to somehow make more of a difference. So I would say, you know, really finding campaigns that you can support, whether, you know, it's any of the ones that the One Thing campaigns, the Antarctic Protection for 2020, the Hope Spots, you know, all these things that people can become involved in, and just, again, trying to get others in your family and your community involved.
I think about our teacher friend, Chuck Shiraz, who used his skills as a witness, as an observer. He as a scientist and as a teacher, observed carefully and reported honestly what he saw. Anybody can do that, and everyone should do that. Chuck is a source of great inspiration, not just to me, but to people everywhere. It really makes a difference. Use your power, whatever it is, whoever you are.
Yeah, and you know, the role of citizen science is expanding all the time, being able to work with scientists who need, you know, extra sets of eyes in the field and to make these observations.
And we sometimes get a little carried away with our sense of importance as scientists. Science is just gathering knowledge accurately and then communicating it accurately. And that's what a scientist does. Whatever else you might call yourself, that's science. You can be a 10-year-old scientist if that's what if you can do good science, meaningful observations based on documenting the reality of nature.
Well, we're kind of at the top of the hour, and we've unfortunately run out of time for this episode.
We've got lots of questions.
We have lots of questions. We're going to try to get maybe some of them offline.
We'll do that.
So we'll try to get an answer to you as we can. But for today, we have to say thank you for joining us for this episode. And we've got this conversation going on with the ocean community about every 2 weeks. But we're going to be taking a break over the Labor Day weekend. We're going to come back on September the 10th. We'll be talking about the intersection of art and science with our friend, the big animal.
Oh, almost,
yeah.
Almost Malcolm.
Yep. So he'll be joining us as a special guest next time. And you can find all of information about upcoming events in your email box on Mission Blue and Ocean Elders social channels. And I really want to thank our special thanks to Medley Media and the Ocean Elders for producing this for us. And past episodes and this episode will be available on YouTube very soon.
Yes.
And until then, remember,
you must protect the ocean as if
your life depends on it.
Because
it does. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you the next time.